I'm John Little of OmegaShock.com, and this is the Weekend Shockcast for Saturday, July 5th, 2014. It grieves me to see what is happening to America and what has already happened, and I truly wish that there was something that we could do to help keep our beloved country from going over the cliff. The problem is that greater men than I have thought to change our course, yet we are still headed into the abyss. So, should we continue to hammer on the brakes, or should we jump clear of the train? Only the Lord can guide you to the right answer to this question. Just do not kid yourself over America's final destination. The United States is destined for a bitter end. Having said that, I'm not happy that this bitter end is coming, and if there was anything that I could do to avoid it, I would. The fact that America appears to be the seventh head of Revelation 13 and 17 and destined to become the eighth and the beast, well, it's one of the most depressing realizations that I've had in a long time. The country that once was is no longer. Yesterday, Independence Day, was a day of mourning for me, and I'm not sure how many such celebrations that we have left, if any. We really are that close to the end. Are you going to be ready for this? It's a link. Do more than just think about it. So, what did we talk about this week? This week we talked about the implications of the seven-headed creatures found in Revelation 12, 13, and 17, as well as those beasts found in Daniel 2 and 7. Unfortunately, it was hard to avoid the comparison to the imperial America that we have today, so we ended the week by looking at the best retreat location in America, the American Redoubt. So, let's talk about that. On Monday, it was America in Prophecy, the Seventh Head. The process of writing last week's series on the petrodollar system has helped reveal a profound truth. America is the greatest empire that ever lived. This isn't the first time that I've referred to the American empire, but it's the first time that it has sunk in so deeply with such conviction. Maybe I'm just a slow learner. That could be it, I don't know. Whatever the cause of my slow progress in seeing what should be obvious, the point should be clear to everyone reading these articles that the United States is the penultimate empire of world history. No empire has been greater, and it is the last one before the beast finally rises. In the book of Revelation, we see for the first time a creature with 7 heads, although it's not the first time that we see a creature with 10 horns. This creature is described in chapter 13 and 17 as the beast. However, there is a creature described in chapter 12 that has 7 heads and 10 horns, just as the creature in chapters 13 and 17, but it is referred to as a red dragon. Why is there a difference in these descriptions? Well, chapter 13 indicates that the creature in chapter 12, the dragon, gives power to the beast. Both have 7 heads and 10 horns, but chapter 13 indicates that they are separate and different. Furthermore, chapter 12 refers to the red dragon as Satan, the devil. And chapters 13 say that the beast rises out of the sea, although, to make things even more difficult, chapter 17 refers to the beast as being scarlet in color and rising out of the bottomless pit. Are these distinctions important? I don't know, but since Revelation makes these distinctions, I will too. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take a moment and talk about the purposes of prophecy. God does everything for a reason, and that includes prophecy. God doesn't hand out messages just to hear himself talk, nor does he do it for his own gratification. Otherwise he wouldn't have sent his only Son to die for us on the cross in punishment for our sins. A self-indulgent, capricious God would never do that. So, if he's not sending prophetic messages to us for his own pleasure, why do we have all these prophecies? To help us. Period. There are no useless prophecies in the Bible, none. If you see a useless prophecy, then there's something wrong with your view of the Bible. All prophecies, every single one, are for the direct use by a group of God's people. That group may have been in the past, or maybe that group exists in the future, but each and every prophecy is a direct message to one or more men and women of God to use. So, how are we to use the prophecy of this seven-headed creature in Revelation? I said we, so yes, I firmly believe that this prophecy is directly intended for those Christians alive right now. We are the intended recipients of this message. I think of it as a letter from God that was deliberately lost in the mail for almost 2,000 years, and it's time that we got the message. So let's try to figure this out, and I believe that we should start with the heads of this beast, and the main passage is from Revelation 17. Quote, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition." Revelation 17, verses 9 to 11. The first part of verse 9 should make us sit up and take notice. Here it is again. "And here is the mind which hath wisdom." Revelation 17:9a. That means that it's going to take some very careful thought or wisdom. That means that we cannot take everything at face value, but need to see more deeply, and it also means that we can get it wrong. So, keep that in mind as we go through this. So, who or what are these 7 heads? They are both mountains and kings. Furthermore, there is another clue. These heads do not exist at the same time, at the moment in time in which John had his vision. 5 were dead, 1 was alive, 1 was going to come in the future. And the clues don't end there. The 7th head will live only a short time, which indicates that it will live for much less time than any of the other heads. Then one of these heads becomes the 8th head, and it is the 8th head that is the beast. So here's the first and probably biggest question. What are these heads? How you answer that question will determine how you put these clues together, and I believe that this is the reason why the angel speaking to John preceded his description with, quote, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom." Revelation 17:9a. So let me ask the central question. What could be both a mountain and a king? I believe that the word mountain is the key point. Are these physical mountains? Of course not. The rest of the passage indicates that 5 mountains have fallen or have died. Do you know of 5 mountains that have fallen in the ancient past, with a 6th that existed at the time of John, followed by a 7th that would rise later on? The answer is that there have been no mountains that have had any impact on our discussion that have fallen in the past, nor was there a mountain that existed in the day of John that would have any impact on what we are talking about. So these mountains are symbols for something. What could a mountain symbolize? I want to give you a list of options, but I can't. I can really only give you one that comes close to fitting our discussion. Empire. Seriously, if you can think of something else that a mountain could be a symbol for in terms of our discussion, please leave a comment and share it with us. Whatever you submit must be big, and there must be 5 of them that fell before the coming of John. But the problem is that there have been many, many empires in the past. So, which empires could these heads be? And what is the selection criteria? Well, there are other prophecies about the last days in the Bible, and any empire that figures prominently in those prophecies would, in my mind, be a candidate for membership as one of the heads. Unless I'm missing something, Daniel is the only prophet that gives us anything to work with. In chapter 2 of Daniel, he describes 5 empires and calls them kings: gold, silver, brass, iron, and iron mixed with clay. Daniel tells us the identity of the gold empire, and that is Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire. The silver would be the Medo-Persian Empire, the brass would be the Greco-Macedonian Empire, the iron would be the Roman Empire. But who is this iron mixed with clay? Well, that was how the feet and toes were described, and here is the explanation given to Daniel. Quote, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, and there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, forasmuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." Daniel 2:41-43. Remember these characteristics because that is the seventh head of the beast of Revelation. Now, Daniel has another vision in chapter 7, and there are 4 beasts and are also described as kings. Lion with eagle's wings, bear with 3 ribs in his mouth, leopard with 4 heads, an unknown beast with 10 horns and iron teeth. Each of those beasts comes in chronological order. The lion is Babylon, the bear is the Medo-Persians, the leopard is the Greco-Macedonians, the unknown beast is the 4th beast must be Rome, since it follows Alexander's Greco-Macedonian kingdom, but it also has the 10 horns and exists at the last days. Well, let me ask you about those that took over the Roman Empire and made it their own. Who were they? Europe and then America. Their legal systems are Roman, their political systems are Roman, except for Switzerland. Their medicine and science are Roman. We even write like Romans. And quite a few empires in Europe identified with Rome. Even the kings of Russia referred to themselves as Tsars or Caesars. The kings of Germany called themselves Kaisers. Then who can forget the Holy Roman Empire that was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire? We could go on, but what does all of this tell us? Well, Europe and her colonies are Rome. So, this 4th beast represents both the 6th and 7th heads, and what was the characteristic of this 4th beast? Here's what Daniel says. Quote, "Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet." Daniel 7:19. It breaks in pieces and stamps the residue with his feet. And that is yet another identifying characteristic of the 7th head. But wait, where are the other heads? So far we have only talked about 5, starting with Babylon. Where are the other 2? I can only assume that the first 2 heads would be Egypt and Assyria. If any of you have better candidates for the remaining 2 heads, please let us know in the comment section below. Okay, I see you guys in the back row starting to nod off, so I'll try to put the pieces together. Here are the characteristics of the 7th head. Comes to power after John dies. The kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. The leadership will mingle themselves with the seed of men. They will not cleave to each other. The 7th head will inherit the characteristics of the 6th. It will devour, break other nations in pieces, and then stomp them flat. It will not be like the first 5 heads. It lasts only for a short time. So the time frame is sometime during the last 2,000 years, because the 7th head comes after the Roman Empire. It also has this partly strong and partly broken quality, and the leadership mingles themselves with the seed of men, and these leaders are in opposition to each other. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it's the democratic election process. and those who are elected do not cleave to each other. I mean, these guys never stop fighting. But this seventh head borrows characteristics from the sixth. What is the Roman Empire called originally? The Roman Republic. Do you know of any empire today that is referred to as a republic? But before you answer that one, let me ask you another question. What empire has lasted for less time than any of the previous six heads and has devoured and broken in pieces the nations of the world? There is only one answer that can possibly fit. America. God help us all. I hope you're ready for this. On Tuesday, it was America in Prophecy, the Wounded Head. Growing up, I'd always assumed that the heads of the beast were modern-day individuals, and like so many, every time that I would read the seven heads are seven mountains, Revelation 17:9, I'd just mentally wave it away and concentrate on what was easier to get my head around. Verse 10. Ignoring the difficult and concentrating on the easy is normal, but in this dangerous age, it's a deadly habit. It is hard to understand what is coming, but that shouldn't keep us from focusing on it. Why? Because the seventh head gets a deadly wound, and you do not want to be nearby when that wound happens. The chief purpose of this website is to help you survive the coming days so that you can continue serving God. For those of you who do not have a desire to serve God, well, you're in a lot of trouble already. Trying to survive what's coming won't really help you much, but I'll do my best to assist you. Please remember that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ came and died for your sins. And He didn't do that so you can have an easy life. Jesus came on a rescue mission, and He wants you on His team, working toward the same goal. If you aren't, well, God will have a thing or two to say about that when you see Him. Now, let's get to that wounded head. We have established that there is a problem with viewing the heads of the beast in Revelation as people, because they are also described as mountains, and then Revelation 17 refers to 5 of the heads as having fallen. We also have the visions of Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 to help us out, and I find it interesting that the image in Daniel 2 has 10 toes, and the fourth beast in Daniel 7 has 10 horns, and Revelation 12, 13, and 17 depict the beast with 10 horns. What could those 10 horns be? And no, I don't have an answer at this moment. I'm sure that it will come to me when I need to understand, and then I'll write a series on it, so we'll leave the 10 horns for later, although I must say that the 10 global regions that the New World Order seems to be setting up, that is my operating hypothesis. Now, also, please share what you know in the comments section below. We've also established America as being the greatest empire that has ever lived. But did you know that it was an empire based on Luciferian mysticism? Look at the back of the US dollar bill. On the left, you see a pyramid with the all-seeing eye of Horus on top. That is an image at the back of the official seal of the United States of America. Who was the one who submitted those images for consideration as the official seal of the U.S.? Thomas Jefferson. Look at the architecture of Washington, D.C. and the geometry of its layout. The capital of America is chock full of Luciferian mysticism. Furthermore, the cornerstone of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. was laid by 33rd degree Mason George Washington. Do you know what the date on that cornerstone reads? AL 5793, or Anno Lucis 5793, dating back to the year of enlightenment when Adam and Eve became enlightened, as in ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Does any of that sound Christian to you? Not to me, and those Masons that reach the 33rd level in Freemasonry find out who they have been worshiping all along. Lucifer. a.k.a. Satan. And all the government buildings in America are dedicated to him when the Masons lay their foundation stones. And yes, almost all government buildings, whether local, state, or federal, have a foundation stone laid by the Masons with an Anno Lucis date. And those Masons dedicate each and every one of those buildings to Lucifer. Let me say that again so that you get this right. The government buildings of America have been formally dedicated to Lucifer. Please let that sink in deep, because it's all true. So yeah, America is a perfect candidate for the seventh head of the beast of Revelation. But what about this wound in one of the heads described in Revelation 13? Well, here's the passage. Quote, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." Revelation 13:3. Revelation 17 says that the 5 of the heads have already fallen. Quote, "And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space." Revelation 17:9-10. So 5 have died. The one that is alive at the time of John, the 6th, that too will fall. It's Rome. So the only head left alive will be the 7th head. Can there be any other interpretation? Furthermore, if I am right in interpreting the heads as empires, and if America is the 7th head, then America will sustain a deadly wound. Okay, that had to have been a shock to some of you, so let me explain it another way. America's political system has its origins in Roman law and Luciferian mysticism, so it is a perfect candidate for being one of the heads. Also, as some of you have already said, one of the common denominators for each of the heads is the existence of the state of Israel and or Jewish control of Jerusalem. America is also the greatest empire to have ever lived. That power alone qualifies it as a candidate for headness. Can you think of any other candidate for this 7th head? But that deadly wound, for those of us who grew up in God Bless America, well, we don't want to think about that. The problem is that we can ignore prophecy, but we cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring prophecy. So we must look at this deadly wound in Revelation 13:3. Here it is again. Quote, "And one of the heads of it, as having been slain to death, and the wound of death of it was healed, and marveled all the earth after the beast." Revelation 13:3. That was a little difficult, because that is a literal word-for-word transliteration of the Greek text. And I show this to indicate something important. The key words are, "as having been slain." What this means is that the appearance of one of the heads is as if it had been slain. Then notice what happens afterwards. The wound of death of it was healed. There are 2 vitally important questions. Was the head brought back to life, or was just the wound healed? The answer, of course, is that just the wound was healed. The head had not died yet, but it was going to die if the wound was not healed. In fact, the terms deadly wound or wound of death indicate that there appeared to be no way that the head could survive, that death was inevitable. But something miraculously heals this 7th head. Revelation 13 doesn't specifically say who or what heals this head, but we might have a clue in the first half of verse 2. "And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." Revelation 13:2. That dragon is described in Revelation 12, and it also has 7 heads, 10 horns, but is red with 7 crowns. Is it possible that this red dragon has this appearance because it dwells within the beast? I don't know, although we do see the beast of Revelation 17 as being scarlet, and I think that Revelation 17 is interesting because it indicates another quality to this seventh head that we will get into tomorrow, and may explain its deadly wound being healed. My main point for you today is to warn those of you living in America. I believe that Revelation is warning you that America is going to be wounded in such a way that many will feel that there is no hope for America's survival. There are many different ways that America could be attacked in this way, and each and every one of them leave little chance of you surviving if you do not prepare. You must treat this warning seriously, and please do not put your hope in the miraculous resurrection of America after receiving this deadly wound, especially when you read what I will write tomorrow. Are you ready for this? On Wednesday, it was America in Prophecy, the Beast. I ended yesterday's article with one of those dreadful cliffhanger sentences that I hate to read. I said it like this, quote, "And please do not put your hope in the miraculous resurrection of America after receiving this deadly wound, especially when you read what I will write tomorrow." Close quote. The problem with this whole idea of America as the seventh head of the beast of Revelation is that America is going to go through an existential catastrophe and come out of it far, far more evil than she is now. With preparation, you might survive the deadly wound of Revelation 13:3, but it is an entirely different thing to survive the beast itself. I strongly believe that America is the seventh head of Revelation 13 and Revelation 17. I know that many can poke holes in my arguments, but none have been able to offer a more convincing alternative to the idea that the United States is the second-to-last empire of our age, or the seventh head of the beast. And since we live very close to the end of the last days, it behooves us to find the answer. It's a life and death issue. That life and death issue comes first in the form of the deadly wound that I talked about yesterday. It's described here. Quote, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." Revelation 13:3. That is a pretty serious problem all by itself. If America sustained such a wound, you are probably going to be listed in the casualty figures if you are anywhere near ground zero. But a closer look at Revelation indicates that there's worse than that. Here's the verse that bothers me. Quote, "And the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition." Revelation 17:11. There is no eighth head, so who or what is this eighth? And while we're at it, how did one of these heads become the eighth? This is a tough one and will require some speculation. This means that I could be wrong, and I will happily admit it in the face of serious proof. I'd almost be willing to kiss your feet if you did prove me wrong. So let me jump into this speculative moment by asking you a question. Is there a connection between Revelation 13:3 and Revelation 17:11? Or maybe I should put it another way. In the process of healing the wound of the seventh head, is that the moment that it becomes the eighth and the beast? If true, it could explain why there's this transformation that happens, turning it into the eighth head and the beast. And there appears to be some justification for this. The New World Order elites seem to have been squirreling away supplies in underground bunkers, preparing for something. Do the elites come roaring out of their underground bases after a nuclear attack and reconstitute a darker, more sinister version of what was once America? There seems to be something to it, at least some evidence. But there is another possibility. When America suffers her catastrophic nuclear attack, a foreign entity could invade and heal a wounded America and bring it back to some semblance of life, but not full strength. While this is happening, another empire could arise from one of the areas where the other six heads once ruled. Either of these scenarios seems possible, but there are problems. In the case of a resurrected America where the elites come roaring back from their bunkers, they would still be facing a devastated America. They would face damaged and destroyed infrastructure and hordes of starving and dying Americans. But this might be something that they want and plan for. This would give them the opportunity to depopulate those parts of America that they want depopulated. They could then preserve those Americans that they want, rebuild, and be ready to take over after the Earth sustains the biggest solar flare in world history, Ezekiel's fire. A devastated Europe and Russia would be desperate for help, and a darker, more sinister America would be ready to take over. On the other hand, a devastated America could be rescued by a China that is wanting to pick up extra land and resources on the cheap. I've written about China's interest in doing so already. So it's not much of a stretch to see the Chinese arrive on America's shores ready to, quote, help, unquote, America back on its feet and into some form of slavery. That could happen. And like my previous scenario, there is an indication that this could take place. But wait. From where would the eighth head rise? Yes, I know that there is talk of a caliphate that could rise to take over the earth, and yes, there would be an opportunity to do this once Ezekiel's fire hits us, but I don't see the manpower or resources for this to happen. I'm not trying to discount it, but the Muslim world lacks the infrastructure and unity to make a global caliphate a reality. For now. Having lived in Israel and having spent a lot of time face-to-face with the Muslim world, it seems like quite a stretch. So, let's turn to Revelation 13 for some help, and I believe that verses 3 and 4 are important. Quote, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." That's Revelation 13:3. And then there's this. Quote, "And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And that's Revelation 13:4. You understand Revelation 13:3 because I hammered on that yesterday. But notice the response to the healing of the wound. It's as if they said, "Whoa, that is amazing. Who can stand up against that?" It's that reaction that gives me pause. This reaction isn't just an, "Oh wow, you came just in the nick of time to help out those poor Americans." No, it's something miraculous and awful that rises out of the rubble of a severely damaged United States, and it will be magnificent, powerful, and pure evil. I'm not sure how else we can see this. I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments section. All of you gave some great input to the previous two articles, and I look forward to seeing what you say about this one. But whatever alternative you give, I believe that it must explain this reaction. I hinted at something ominous at the end of my article yesterday, and everything that I've described today up to this point is bad. But it's not the really bad part. Because as bad as this devastating future could be, nothing that I've described here is quite as awful as this thought. If America suffers a deadly wound and rises from the rubble as the beast, then you are on the home turf of the Antichrist, and that is a horrifying situation to be in. Are you ready for this? On Thursday, it was the American Redoubt, because America is in prophecy. The idea that America is the seventh head and the beast of Revelation is not going to be easy to swallow for most Americans, especially on the eve of our most patriotic holiday, Independence Day. The problem is that ignoring prophecy in these last days is a recipe for disaster, so we are forced to look at these things. Furthermore, there are so many disasters bearing down on America right now. The thought that America is the wounded head of Revelation 13, well, it's just a bit more icing on the cake. To mix in another metaphor, stick a fork in us 'cause our goose is cooked. So let's talk a bit about getting out of Dodge. I have told everyone and will continue to tell everyone that getting out of America is the second most important bit of preparation that you can make for the coming disaster. The first will always be dedicating your life to the service of Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. The problem with getting out of America is that so many are unable to do so, for a number of reasons. So let me offer an alternative. I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. The American Redoubt. The American Redoubt is a concept of James Wesley Rawls, and he is someone that everyone should listen to. This is his website, survivalblog.com. If you plan to stay in the United States, then you need to know everything that he talks about, and I posted an article about him with links to an interview there. It's called Relocation Interview with James Wesley Rawls, and you can find it on my website. And I have a somewhat older post here, and it's just titled James Wesley Rawls. As I said in that one, quote, when you're sick, you need a doctor. When you're really sick, you need a specialist, close quote. James is a specialist, one that you will need if you plan on sticking around for all the fireworks that are coming, and no, I don't mean the kind that you will be seeing tomorrow. This was brought to mind by a podcast that I listened to several days ago on prepperrecon.com, and it's titled Podcast Moving America Redoubt Hunter. I recommend that you listen to the interview because it offers the viewpoint of someone who made the decision to move to the American Redoubt. I was impressed by Hunter, the person being interviewed, and he wants to help. He was instrumental in setting up an information forum that for those who are interested in learning more about relocation and what you should do if you can't. Here's the site. It's called walkingtofreedom.com. And for those interested in taking a bit of a look at what relocation might be like, Mr. Rawls' son, Jonathan, has a site called Survival Realty, survivalrealty.com. It's actually quite interesting to look through the properties that are available. If you cannot relocate to the American Redoubt, at least have an action plan that will conceivably get you to a safe place in the event of a catastrophic disaster. There are many different disasters rolling down on us, and a city will be the most dangerous place you could possibly be. Please have a plan. Are you ready for this? This has been the Weekend Shockcast for Saturday, July 5th,